Antony Blinken got a report from USAID about how the Israeli regime was, in fact, blocking humanitarian aid from getting into the Gaza Strip, which the Israeli regime was lying about. They recommended and let him know that what they were doing was a violation. And he just ignored the report and just continued to give them arms. Listen to this. Listen to this piece of yay. By the way, if you're not already subscribed to YouTube, subscribe. Subscribe to YouTube. That is free. You can subscribe to this channel for free and follow me on other socials for free. If you want to support my work, you can either donate to my Venmo or you can do so by becoming a member on YouTube through YouTube. You can also donate super chats during this stream or become a member on my Ko-Fi, which is like Patreon. And thank you so much to everybody who already is a member on my Ko-Fi and YouTube and who has ever donated. I love you guys. All right, share screen. All right, let me know if
this is actually pretty typical. We had a report to put out.
Can you guys hear
on
it?
The humanitarian situation in Gaza and what Israel was doing to try to make sure that people got the assistance.
You guys hear it? I'm not seeing yes. Oh, okay. There we go.
Mr. Secretary, Propublica has determined that 2 agencies found that Israel is deliberately stopping humanitarian aid from getting to civilians. And as you well know, the U.S. government says that it has to restrict supplying weapons to a country that does this type of thing. Why have we not done so?
Yeah. So this is actually pretty typical. We had a report to put out on the humanitarian situation.
Pretty typical lie.
In Gaza and what Israel was doing to try to make sure that people got the assistance they needed. And I had different assessments from different parts of the State Department, from other agencies that were involved, like USAID. My job is to sort through them, which I did,
and to
draw some conclusions from that. And we put out our report, and we found that Israel
convenient.
needed to do a better job on the humanitarian assistance. We've seen improvements since then. It's still not sufficient.
Mr. Secretary,
joke. This is an actual joke. We went through the support, through the report, I mean, and I found that magically they did nothing wrong. They need to do better. Promise me. Pinky swear. Promise me that you'll do better. Okay, here's the weapons. I mean, we looked at the report and happened to find nothing wrong with it. We looked at the report and drew conclusions that everything they're doing, including starving children, is fine. Okay? That's what we did. That's how we looked at the report and drew those conclusions, and it was fine. And then he just goes, they need to do better. You've been saying that for a year. You've been saying they need to do better for a year. How's that working? How's that working? Have they changed anything? No, it's such a joke, you guys. It's such a joke. Because if they actually really cared, they would have already done a weapons embargo. They would have already done a weapons embargo. They would have already cut off the shipments. Already. They need to do better. Well, you've been saying that for a year and they haven't, so now what? Israel has the right to defend itself, but how they do so matters. They need to do better. All their platitudes. We're looking into it. We've started internal investigation. Oh, we haven't started an internal investigation. They're investigating themselves. They're investigating themselves. Or they do this. They do this. They either do, they have to do better, even though they've been saying that for a year. Like, just think about it. They go, they have to do better. Okay, well, they've been saying so for a year and they haven't done better. So what's the consequence of that? Oh, nothing. Oh, well, you know, they have a right to defend themselves, but how they do so matters. No, it doesn't, because you give them weapons no matter what. You give them money no matter what. So, well, they need to take care of civilians and let aid in, but they're not. So what are you going to do about it? Nothing. Israel's investigating themselves. They're investigating themselves over Hin Rajab. They're investigating themselves over Aishanor Egi. They're investigating themselves over the World Central Kitchen. And they found they've done nothing wrong. And then they go, okay, so why haven't we had any follow-up on that? And then you get the famous, I can't speak to that. Like all the trash bags in the State Department will be like, oh, sorry, I can't speak to that. You know, I can't speak to that. That's their other favorite one. That's the one Matt Miller and Karine Jean-Pierre and what's his name? John Kirby. That's the one they always do. They're such garbage. Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's a good point, old Boney Bird. Even when that lady from the Pentagon said that Israel does not tell us what they use the bombs for. Yeah, what happened to the Leahy Law? What happened to that? The Leahy Law means that if they are using weapons or money that we supply that violates international law or humanitarian law, that it has to go under review and be stopped. Those are our laws. But we're not following our own laws. We're not following our own laws. It's just insane. Do you think we'll ever see an end to the Zionist terrorist regime? Also, I love your content on Twitter. Thank you. Yes, I do. I do. I don't know when, but I do think we are going to see the end of it. I don't know what the day after is going to look like. I don't know what will be in its place. That's not up to me. That's up to the people in Palestine. But I do think that what they are doing, what they are, is unsustainable. Like, because the mask is fully off. For the longest time, they've been able to hide, you know, behind US giving it cover. They can't really hide anymore. The mask is fully off. Everybody sees who they are. They see that they're trying to start a war with Lebanon, trying to start a war with Iran. Like, everybody sees now. Well, yeah, that's the other thing, is that all of our politicians are so corrupt. They just go in there so that they can make a lot of money and trade stocks and then loot the place on their way out. Dawn, if you want me to answer your asinine question, you're going to have to send a super chat. I can only take this kind of nonsense for so long in one day. What was the other thing? And there was another one I wanted to go over, another story. Did you guys see the ProPublica report? It's crazy. But we all knew it. Everybody knew it. Everybody knew. So basically, Americans are being taxed to send them weapons to kill Palestinians. Then we're getting taxed to send them aid also that the Israeli regime is destroying and not allowing to get in. So we're being taxed on both ends. And that goes back to the other thing that I was saying about the Israeli regime and the Zionist project not being able to sustain itself, is because now a lot of people who didn't pay attention to foreign policy, who didn't pay attention to what was happening in the world, sees what's happening there in a way that they never had. Like, I didn't know that, you know, I voted for Biden in 2020. I had no idea that, like, he and his entire cabinet were psychotic Zionists. But I do now. Yeah, exactly. Because all of our politicians are so corrupt and paid off by the Israeli regime. They'll be like, give us your tax money and then thank us so we can give your tax money to the Israeli regime. And then after we take your tax money and we give it to the Israeli regime on both ends to take your money, we're going to turn around and call you, the protesters, the Americans, terrorists, and then tell you to thank us for taking your money. Like, it's so insane. I think I just saw another mouse. Of course. Of course. Why wouldn't I have? Yeah, well, it's like Netanyahu said, I understand how to deal with the Americans. I'd like to believe it'll end soon, but I really don't think so. I mean, October 7th is coming up. And they'll turn the page. I mean, that's possible too, but I don't know how long it'll take, but I don't think that things are ever going to just go back to the way they were. How could they? How could they? Because I know for me, I'm never going to stop talking about it. I'm never going to stop advocating for Palestinians and their freedom now that I know. And I know other people that are like me that didn't really know about this before and now aren't going to let it go. You can't just keep people in a cage. Is everybody that's watching on Twitch a Zionist? They need to finish Hezbollah and Hamas once and for all so people in Palestine. This is such an embarrassing talking point. This is such an embarrassing talking point. The only reason why those groups exist is because of the Israeli regime's terrorism toward the indigenous population there. That is the only reason why Hamas exists. The only reason that Hezbollah exists is because of the terrorism inflicted on the indigenous population by the Israeli regime. You don't get rid of them. You stop the occupation. You want to solve this problem? End the occupation right now. Right now. Reparations to the Palestinians. Give them their land back. How can an occupying army that deliberately kills children and women be granted the right to self-defense while this right is withdrawn from people under occupation? It's not. They don't have a right to self-defense. That's just a Western talking point. You don't have the right to defense against your occupier. I mean, against the people that you occupy. Like, if you're the occupier, which the Israeli regime is, you don't have a right to defend yourself over a population that's besieged and you're occupying. Like, that's not a thing. And it's insane any second that you actually think about it. Like, here in the West, we have so tried to indoctrinate people into these talking points. No, Israel has the right to exist. They have the right to defend themselves, la, 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 la. But like, when you actually stop and think about it, it's an insane thing to say. It's like telling a person breaks into your house and then steals all your shit. You try to defend yourself by like throwing plates at them, and then they shoot you. And then they tell the cops when they're arrested that they had a right to defend themselves in your house as they were attacking you. Make it make sense. One state. How is this real? They throw rocks at the army tanks. Yeah, so? Who gives a shit? What is a rock going to do to a tank? Like, is this really a defense? How is this not a joke? How is this not a joke? Yeah, but they threw some Skittles at me. Sure, I've got Apache helicopters and AK-47s and a literal tank and an army, but they threw some Skittles at me. It was like a pebble. I don't know, maybe cereal, but they like threw it at me. So like I had to wipe them out. Okay. Like ridiculous. Ridiculous. Antony Blinken, to wrap up this part of the segment, should be in jail, should be impeached, and should be tried for war crimes, along with Biden. The whole administration and Netanyahu should obviously be in jail. Like, should have been in jail like 10 atrocities ago, 20 atrocities ago.